new ideas in project management, and the latest trends in career innovation and business agility. This is Project Management on the Go, a podcast by the PMI-Northern Italy chapter.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back, our listeners, to another episode of the Project Management on the Go podcast from PMI Northern Italy, where our aim is to provide you with interesting insights on the project management profession through our special guests. My name is Emre Emanetoğlu. As a volunteer at the PMI Northern Italy chapter, I have the honor to interview a prominent international speaker for this episode today, Olivier Lazar. He is one of the world's leaders in organizational transformation and the author of the 4 Pillars of Portfolio Management. In addition to being an active PMI member and a former volunteer for the past 2 decades, Olivier is the Vice President for Strategic Alliances at PMI and the COO of PMI Educational Foundation, PMI-EF. Today's topic is the Youth Strategy of Project Management Institute. Before going into the details, I would ask Olivier to tell us more about himself for those who don't know him.
Yeah, hello Emre, thank you very much for having me today with you. It's really an honor and a pleasure. Yeah, my name is Olivier. As you can hear in the accent, I'm French. Sorry, happens. But I don't live in France anymore. I lived there most of my younger life. I lived 10 years in Switzerland, and now I live in the US on the East Coast. Had several careers in my life. First one, would you believe it, was in the music industry, was where I was a recording technician, and I used to organize concerts, plays, exhibitions, things like that, which was my first, I would say, informal contact with project management. Then I moved into marketing, e-business, and web design, which was a more formal approach to project management. And in the early 2000s, when the internet bubble collapsed for the first time, I decided to move back into studies, Masters of Science in Project Management, and an MBA in strategy, which led me to consultancy. And that was, by the way, my first contact with PMI was a project management institute. So that was, yeah, some like 18, 20 years ago. I did many different volunteering things, consulted on organizational topics in various industries. And I find myself now in the US going like Alice on the other side of the mirror, not still working with PMI, but not in a volunteering position, but as an employee. And I'm leading the Department of Strategic Alliances, which embraces, among other things, our youth engagement strategy. And this is why I'm also sitting in the chair of the COO for PMI-EF.
Very interesting, thank you. As said before, you are the Chief Operating Officer of PMI-EF, which is the philanthropic arm of PMI. Could you explain briefly what is PMI-EF and what does it do?
So PMI-EF is, as you said, the philanthropic arm of PMI. So basically what we do is to work with so-called youth-serving non-for-profits, so organizations that serve young children, teenagers, kids overall, in acquiring project management skills and competences. So we don't work anymore in the formal academic and educational space. We work with organizations like Children International, Junior Achievement, Spatial Olympics, Formula One in schools most recently, who bring this competences, with different types of skills and development opportunities to children around the school system, I would say, beyond the school system. You're certainly familiar with PMI's talent triangle, the combination of technical project management, which basically is knowing how to do things, the leadership dimension, which is about knowing how to interact with others, and the strategic dimension, which is basically about knowing why you do things. So the strong belief we have at PMI, and PMI-EF in particular, is that these skills are actually not about project management. This is about change making. This is about anything you can do, whatever is your profession, whatever is your activity, and whatever is your level of interaction. And the earlier you bring these competences, the most impactful change makers these kids will become in their life, the more successful they will be in their studies and in their early professional career. So what we're trying to do is really to promote this set of skills as skills for life for these children, supporting them in becoming impactful change makers.
Thanks, Olivier. Previously, PMI-EF's mission was to work through schools, teachers, and the formal educational system. The organization updated its strategy, single-mindedly targeting youth, going through so-called youth-serving non-for-profits. Can you explain why PMI-EF narrowed its focus in 2019, and what are the new vision and mission?
So the vision and the mission, as I just described it, has not changed. It's still promoting project management as a skill for life, as a necessary skill to develop new generations of change makers. But we have noticed that while working with the formal educational system, schools, teachers, colleges, universities, and so on, it takes a very long time. And it requires a lot of effort for actually quite a limited impact. So the question we asked ourselves, and at that time I was sitting on the board of the Educational Foundation. I was not the CEO, I was sitting on the board of the Educational Foundation. The question we asked ourselves at that time is how to optimize the balance between our time or effort, meaning the time and the effort of our volunteers and of the entire organization, and maximizing the impact which we can have. Usually we have seen that it takes 7 years. It takes 7 years to establish a relationship with the formal educational system. Simple example, in a country like which I know well, France, for example, you have a change in the president every 5 years, and you have a legislative change, elections, every 6 years, meaning that the government changes at least every 5 or 6 years. If it takes you 7 years to establish a relationship, by the time you have started the relationship, the people have already changed, and the overall governance strategy has shifted. And in many countries, actually, you can't implement whatever you want in the schools program without having the endorsement of the ministries and education departments. So everything goes through this official governmental channel. So that was not efficient. We wanted to maximize the impact. How to maximize the impact? Work with the organizations who are more flexible, more able to absorb what we can bring to them to support their mission and their engagement. In other words, youth serving non-for-profit, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Children International, even organizations like UNICEF, Special Olympics, Formula One in schools, Junior Achievement, and many others.
Very good, thanks. You talked about impact and efficiency. I also noticed that project management knowledge is mentioned as critical life skills in this strategy. Could you give us more details about it, and why is it important for youth to learn project management skills early in life?
So that's also something which is illustrated in not shift, but expansion of positioning of PMI. You certainly have noticed that in the most recent communications from PMI, we're not so much talking to project managers. I mean, people who formally call themselves project managers or who recognize applying a formal practice of project management. So we still do, of course, we're still PMP, CAPM, and other certifications. But actually, this population, if we look globally, it's about 75 to 85 million people. But how many people actually launch, participate, trigger actions, initiatives that have an impact on their community, their organization, or the society at large, without even calling themselves project managers, without even recognizing necessarily themselves as being project managers, but guess what? Still applying the tools and techniques and approaches we all know from the PMBOK guide, from the discipline agile framework, the program management standards, and so on. Countless people who, without necessarily recognizing themselves or even being recognized as project managers, are still doing projects and triggering change. And the idea is actually to enable as many change makers as we can, even if they don't call themselves project managers, expanding this. And as I said earlier, this talent triangle is something which you apply whatever you're doing, whatever is your profession. From the moment you start something, you have to know how to do it, you have to know how to interact with people who will be your stakeholders, and you have to understand why you're doing it and be capable of structuring the decision-making process around it, which is what at PMI, IPMA, Prince 2, whatever, if you take this as a definition, it's a definition of project management. It's like in the play from Molière, where Monsieur Jourdain was doing prose without knowing he's doing prose. You have millions, hundreds of millions of people who are actually change makers doing project management without formally recognizing it. We want to reach out to these people. We want to enable them. We want to empower them to becoming more impactful on the change they have and impact they have on society.
Indeed, it seems like a very strong mission about change making and change makers. Thanks. With the new strategy, PMIF does not work directly with youth. It delivers services to youth serving non-for-profits to help them transfer project management knowledge and life skills. Can you explain to our listeners how it collaborates with youth, non-for-profits, and volunteers to deliver value? So, how did the previous strategy work? How does it work right now? And how will it work in the future?
So what we're doing is collaborating with the youth-serving non-for-profits in order to first work with them in including project management development skills into their programs. So basically, if we take the example of an organization like Formula One in schools, which promotes engineering capabilities with teenagers, they have to assemble a race car and actually running races. We bring into that the capability to insert project management, learning project management, development into these initiatives. That's one very direct layer where we definitely bring project management competences to teenagers. Another aspect is actually to bring project management to these organizations themselves, meaning training their staff, training their volunteers to allow them to put in place more efficient ways of working, to work smarter in the way they deliver actually their programs to youth. So it's not so much different from what we were doing when working with teachers and bringing project-based learning, for example, into the classroom. And all of these resources are, by the way, still available. And if we have PMI chapters working with schools, we encourage them to keep going working with the schools, and we even support this. So we're not stopping this. We're not telling to anyone stop doing this. We're just, our core activity is really supporting this youth serving non-for-profits in the way they deliver things and in shaping what they deliver to include project management competences.
Okay, clear. How does the refresh strategy affect the social good programs? And What is the new role of PMI chapters?
So it affects definitely social good. By coincidence, or social good and societal engagement strategic pillar is also within my Department of Strategic Alliances. But guess what? It's not a coincidence that these two things of youth engagement strategy and PMIF and social good are actually under the same umbrella. PMIF is the bridge between youth engagement and social good. What we're doing at PMI is to structure most of our initiatives around the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And most of what we're doing with PMIF is actually supporting the educational goal among the 17 SDGs. And all of the social good element is structured around this SDGs, more specifically even around the 17th, which is creating a hub of organizations around social good. But we have a variety of different initiatives at PMI which are addressing different social goods. We have, of course, the educational one, but we also have gender equality through our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And all of these things are connected and structured, organized around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so chapters are mostly encouraged to engage into these initiatives. PMIF had a network of so-called PMIF liaison within the chapters. We're now transforming this role of the PMIF liaison within chapters into what we call the youth and social good engagement coordinators, who are chapter leaders who make the bridge between the global PMI and PMIF organization as a whole and the chapters locally, helping us to consolidate, support, coordinate, and feed all of the different initiatives which are launched at the chapter level. And this is very important because it's an opportunity to engage the entire organization, the 14,000 volunteers we have worldwide, with the 310 chapters we have, in the same orientation, structured around the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you. Coming back to the strategy again, PMI Educational Foundation planned to execute the new strategy in 3 phases, and the first phase will be completed at the end of this year, 2021. What are these 3 phases, and what is the aim of each period?
So it's a very simple life cycle. So the first phase was of definition and exploratory, where we have defined the strategy and we have started to deploy it in an exploratory way. And good news, it works. We have actually 6 partnerships active with youth serving non-for-profits, and we are now entering into a next phase, which is, I would say, an operational phase, a development phase, where we will be developing these partnerships. The idea is to add to that list of 6, to add 3 more per year. Every year we will add 3 more. Just to give you some numbers, the idea between 2021 and 2025 is to invest through grants supporting youth serving non-for-profits, is to invest the equivalent of $17.5 million. So that's a lot of money. And it's just $17.5 million in money, but this is a countless amount of energy, of content, of intellectual property, resources, tools, and this is a countless amount of volunteer dedication, because we want to engage the chapters into these different initiatives. So we are now in a phase where we will start to expand this strategy, and that phase of expansion is planned so far to end around 2025 to 2027, where 2027, we plan to do an appraisal of what has been done in the previous year and see if we eventually have to change anything into that. Doesn't mean that we don't revisit the strategy on a yearly basis to make tweaks and realignment in order to navigate through the different hiccups, like the COVID, for example. But really, 2027 is about measuring, appraising the strategy and see the impact.
So, as far as I understand, PMI through PMIF helps secure the future of project management, a noble mission. How can our listeners be a part of the community? By participating in volunteering activities and making donations to create a sustainable impact. And where can they get more information?
So there is a web page on PMI.org, which is PM Impact. So you go on PMI.org and you look for volunteering and PM Impact, where you will find a lot of information. And also here you can find a form to fill in where you can actually claim what you have done in terms of volunteering for social good. Whatever social good initiative which you are launching as a volunteer, if you are a PMI member, a PMI volunteer, or a PMI affiliate certification holder, whatever, you can say here, hey, this is what I have done to contribute to social good. And if it's connected, and it's certainly connected to one of the different SDGs, United Nations SDGs, you're good to go. So what we encourage people to do is to connect with your local chapters. That's one, because this is where things actually happen on the field. This is where actually social good is delivered. When you have a chapter supporting the Red Cross in learning about project management, this is social good. When you have a chapter supporting the local food bank, either directly helping them in distributing food or supporting them in their governance processes, this is social good. So we encourage all community to become a power, a force of positive change in the society. Whatever small is your initiative or whatever big is your initiative, it absolutely doesn't matter. The sea is made of small drops. There is no drop which is too small into this. Whatever you're doing, please keep going. This is our responsibility as an organization like PMI, as a professional organization, as an association, to contribute to improving society. Go to your chapters, reach out to this youth and social good coordinator I just mentioned before, and they will connect you with what is going on there. And through 310 chapters, I can tell you there's 310,000 different initiatives going on.
Yes, very good. I think it's better to repeat it. The sea is made of small drops. There is no drop which is too small. So keep going. Olivier, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Emre. Thank you very much.
It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. I hope our listeners enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Thank you for listening and see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have you enjoyed this episode? Then don't forget to activate the alerts or to follow us so you will not miss the next ones. This PMI NIC podcast grants you 0.5 PDU. You can report on the PMI CCRS section, online or digital media. We are waiting for you at the next episode of Project Management on the Go.